Hello, friends. As we all know that right now we are sitting in the month of February, and I mean within next 1.5 months, the audit obligations are going to hit us as a RA. For research analysts, the audit is mandatory, and now there are new timelines which has come up. Secondly, there are increased requirements for audit. So with these increased requirements, so our record maintenance has also increased. So I have prepared this video to, just walk you through what all documents that you would require for your audit and what all document that that you need to maintain as a record for the purpose of audit. So this time, earlier, what used to happen? I mean, there were four records which we needed to maintain. But right now, in this regulation, I mean, which after the amendment of 16th of December, the requirement has increased to eight. So now you need to maintain eight record instead of four for the purpose of audit as well as for your own internal record maintenance. So I just walk you through this video and I'll tell you that what are the requirements for this year audit and what all you need for your audit so that you can maintain those records in a timely manner and get your audit done. So let us first understand what is the timeline for audit this time. Earlier there was no timeline in previous regulation, but this time the audit has to be completed within the 6 month from the end of financial year, which means from end of March 2025, within 6 months, that is up to September 25, you need to complete your audit. And after that, within 1 month of audit report, you need to submit the audit report to three places. Number one, to BSC SEBI. Secondly, you need to display it on your website. And third, you need to send it to your clients. And this cannot be done beyond October 2025, which means if you are going to have your audit in the month of September 2025, which means within October itself, you need to send your audit report to these three people. Number one, BSC. Second is to display it on your website. And third is to send it to your clients. And now let us understand what are the three pillars of audit. So you need to maintain three types of records, rather two types of record, and one is like a check and balances for your regulation compliances. So let me just walk you through these three things that you need to maintain. Out of these, there are two record requirements, and third one is the regulatory requirements, basically the checks and balances that if you have followed the regulation in its true sense or not. So three pillars are: number one, the client master; second is the recommendation masters; and third is the reporting and other regulations, which are in a kind of yes and no question, that you have done this, okay, yes, you have done this, no, this kind of questions that would be asked, and accordingly the audit report will be prepared. So as far as the records are concerned, you only need to maintain two records. Number one, the client master records. Number two, the recommendation master record. So I'll just walk you through in detail what client master has and what recommendation master has. Now, client master, there are few requirements for client master. Number one is the KYC record. So you need to maintain the client data along with their PAN number and the kind of services they have availed for and the payment records. So this is all under KYC as well as the client master record. So number one part of client master record is the KYC. In KYC, what you need to do first of all, let us understand what is the requirement for KYC. For all the KYC related stuff, you have timeline until 30th June for old client as well as for new clients. So if you do not have any KYC record as on March 2025, you can give a declaration to your auditor that we haven't done KYC as of now, but we will be completing the KYC by 30th June 2025. So that will suffice for this year audit. For this year audit, KYC is not a very essential requirement, because SEBI has given us timeline to complete the KYC things by 30th of June 2025. Thereafter, you need to maintain, if you are maintaining the KYC record, you need to have a Google Sheet or Excel where you will, list down all the client's name, the PAN number, as well as what kind of services they have subscribed for, and their payment records if you can maintain that also. But I'll come to the payment record later on. But in this first KYC Google Sheet, you need to maintain only the client name and the PAN number. And once you have done that, and if you have fetched the client KYC from NSC KRA or any other KRA services, then you need to maintain that XML file or image which was fetched from the KRA system. So auditor will check your Excel sheet along with your XML file that you have done the KYC for all the clients. And then the second requirement is the signed terms and condition record. Now here the requirements are slightly different as compared to KYC. For KYC, for every new client and old client, we have timelines until 30th June 2025. But for terms and condition, for older client, we have timelines until 30th June. But for new client, we have to do the terms and condition immediately after, means once we onboard the client. So that's the requirement, and that's the difference between KYC versus terms and condition records. So when you are signing your terms and condition, now you need to segregate your client into two parts. Number one, the clients which are onboarded before 8th of January, which are absolutely not under the scope of this year audit. Why? Because for the older client, which means the clients which were onboarded before 8th of January, for those terms and conditions signing timeline is 30th June 2025. So if as on March 25 you do not have older clients terms and condition, it is all okay. You need to give only a small declaration that for the older client you will be completing the terms and condition signing by 30th of June 2025. So for this year, the only requirement is if you have onboarded any client on or after 8th of January, for those clients you need to have the signed terms and condition records for 2024-25 audit. Now, because the payment also is capped for 3 months now, so now you need to maintain the payment record that you haven't taken any payment from any client which is beyond 3 months. That is the requirement for this year audit. For this, you need to maintain the entire payment records for each and every client, old as well as new clients. For old clients, you can do away with. Why? Because for those, the compliance timeline is till 30th of June 2025. But for new clients which were onboarded on or after 8th of January, you need to have the payment record clearly mentioning that okay, for from this client we have taken the payment for 1 year, or this client is on monthly subscription, this client is on quarterly subscription, and so on and so forth. So you cannot take payment beyond 3 months. So you cannot take any advance beyond 3 months as per the regulation. So this is the audit requirement for March 2024-25 for new clients. And for old client, as I told you, that the timeline is for 30th of June 2025. For older client, again, a declaration will do for this year audit. But if you have, then get it audited as well. Why to linger on till 30th of June? But if you're not doing it, then it will hit you in next year. And next year, then you need to bring the older record to get them audited, because the 3 months timeline is also falling in next year. So that will create problem for you only, because in next year audit you need to go back to 24-25 or go back to before 8th of January 2025 to get those older record and get them audited in the next year. So better that you completed by 31st March this year itself and get them audited, and just do away with those audit things. Now thereafter, after the client master, the second records or the second thing that you would be needing for this year audit would be your recommendation master. I'm going into detail what all recommendation masters will have, and how you can maintain, as per the regulation. Now, again, you need to maintain an Excel sheet and or a Google sheet where you are maintaining all the records of recommendation which you have given, during 24-25, segregated with plan wise. What are your price points? I mean, what is the entry price? What is the stop loss price? What is the target? And so on and so forth. These kind of records that to be maintained in a Google sheet or a Excel sheet, which will be your recommendation master. And after that, you need to maintain, now this is the most important part, you need to maintain a backup or a rationale or a research report backing those recommendations which you have given. Now let me just clarify few things here when we are talking about the rationale. So there are people who are only giving ultra short term trading calls, maybe ranging from 1 day to maybe 2-3 days. Then there are swing traders, or the swing calls or positional call, and there are long term calls. For any long term call for which the holding period is 1 year or beyond, you also need to maintain the price graph, daily closing price graph for those kind of recommendation which has the holding period of 1 year and beyond. Okay. But for swing and positional as well as the ultra short term calls, there is no requirement to maintain any daily closing price graph. You only need to maintain a rationale or a backup. Now there are certain requirements for rationale and a backup that I'll talk about. Okay. But for the ultra short term and swing and positional, you only need to maintain at what price point that you on at what price point you have given your those recommendation, as well as a brief rationale as to why you have given that. Now I had got a question that the people who are doing the option calls, for those people, I mean, there is some kind of strategy, there is some kind of methodology. So if you have that methodology or a strategy basis which you are giving your option recommendations, you only need to maintain the option price point on which you have given your recommendation, along with the strategy which will be same across any kind of option call that you are giving. So if you are using a strategy for giving 500 calls, so for those 500 calls you can mention that methodology in your rationale or backup. And for say next 500 calls you are using strategy B, in that case for those 500 recommendation you can use the B strategy as a part of your rationale. So this is the main requirement for ultra short term calls. And for swing you can always mention any kind of logic in your recommendation backup along with the price point for which you have given the calls. The only additional requirement for the long-term call is to maintain a daily price graph if your recommendation holding period is 1 year and beyond. Now, this I have already talked about, the daily price graph of Recos, which has the time period of 1 year and more. This is for long-term recommendations. Now, report has to be signed either through a physical signature, wet signature, or a digital signature using a DSC or maybe any other mode, maybe an Acrobat digital signature as well. Now here the date is very, very important. Make sure that the date of signature should be either on the date of recommendation or before that. The date of signature cannot be after the date of recommendation. Means if you do that, then it's a compliance means, because it will signify that you have given the recommendation but signed it later. So the recommendation has to be signed either on the date of recommendation or before the date of recommendation. Only then it is a valid backup. Otherwise it is not a valid backup. Now, apart from these two major chunks of requirement which will cover almost 70 to 80% of your compliance audit, which means the client master records as well as the recommendation master records. After that, there are certain other audit requirements which are in the nature of, confirmatory sort of things, that auditor will confirm these things from you, and there are certain certificate requirement for corporates. So these are not as big as the client master and recommendation master. These are kind of confirmatory requirement that you need to fulfill as per the regulation this for this year audit. Now, number one is the validity of your NISM certificate. Your NISM certificate has to be valid as on 30th June, or during, I would say during the entire 24-25, which means that if your NISM certificate is going to expire within 24-25, you need to either do ECP or do the renewal exam to maintain the NISM certificate validity. That will be checked. Thereafter, you need to maintain the record of public appearances. Public appearances could be on your YouTube channel, or could be on any newspaper, or could be on any news portal. Anything where you are appearing in public and talking about stocks or anything else, you need to maintain the record of this. If you're talking about the stock specifically, then you need to maintain the backup or rationale of those the stock that you have talked about. And if you are only talking about in journal about market, then only need to maintain a public appearance record that on such and such date I have appeared on such and such channel and talked about this topic. Only the basic records. Now, if you are giving stock recommendation in any kind of public forum, then you need to maintain the record under regulation 19 and 21. There are certain more requirements for your recommendation backups. Now, these are the mandatory disclosures. Okay. These are the mandatory disclosure that you need to have in your recommendation backup. So whatever backup that you are maintaining, apart from price point, the logic and the rationale, you need to either put the entire disclosure according to regulation number 19 and 21 in the backup, or what you can do, you can have a link created on your website for regulation number 19 and 21, which is mandatory disclosure under RA regulation, right? And you can put that link in your recommendation backup. Now, this is very, very important. Just to highlight two things here. Number one, this mandatory regulation disclosure according to regulation 19 and 21 has to be on all the recommendation backups. Number one. Number two, if you are appearing in public, then you need to show this as a scrolling bar. Okay. Or you put it in the description box of your YouTube video or anywhere else if you are posting on Twitter, then you need to put this link of mandatory disclosure under your post. So it has to be everywhere wherever you are appearing, talking about stocks or posting something or recommending stocks. So this is the key requirement, and recently we have seen one of the case where this mandatory disclosure was not given in the backup or in the public appearances, and SEBI has taken the cognizance of it, and SEBI has taken the action on this. So this is mandatory under regulation 19 and 21. You can refer to regulation number 19 and 21, and if you want the entire description what has to be given under regulation 19 and 21, you can get in touch with me on my DM. I'll share the link with you so that you can simply copy that and put it on your website according and change your name only in this. Now, another check and balances that will be done by the auditor this time, that he will or she will ask for your family records. If is there any distributor of any mutual fund product or any other product, in that case you need to provide the confirmation or kind of declaration to the auditor whether they are doing any distributorship business through their family member or not. And another requirement, if you have run any ad during 24-25 or after the regulation of 16th of after October, I would say rather, then you need to have your ad approvals in place if you are running any kind of ad. Then another check and balances that will be done by the auditor is to ask about your staff, the staff which is involved in research services, if they are assisting you in research services, or if they are, you know, interacting with the client and giving them the recommendation or maybe the research. If they are, giving the information about the research to the client, then they need to be graduate and NISM certified all the time. Now, as far as the deposits are concerned, there are no guideline as of now, but in order to ensure the compliance with the regulation, now this is the gray area, but to be, secure ourselves, if there are no guideline which come up by 31st of March 2025, then we will maintain a net worth certificate as we used to do in the older regulation, although it is not written anywhere, but only for the sake of only for the safeguarding our interest, we will simply maintain a net worth certificate as on 31st March 2025 if the deposit guidelines do not come. Okay. Or there is an alternative which you can do. You can have one FD according to the deposit requirements, and you can give a declaration since the lien details are have not come yet, but I have maintained a deposit as per the regulation. That will also do this time. So whenever the lien detail will come, we will simply lien that FD to the required detail. Now, another additional requirement for this year 24-25, that you need to maintain a functional website, and there are some website compliances as well. You need to have whatever kind of website that you are maintaining, it doesn't matter, but there has to be certain mandatory requirement that has to be on your website. Number one is your investor charter. Number two, your complaint table that should be updated. And number three, disclosure under RA regulation. This disclosure under RA regulation is the same which I recently talked about, the regulation 19 and 21 requirements that you need to put on your website. You can simply take this link and put it in all your recommendation as well as public appearances, or as well as in any kind of social media where you are posting or uploading any kind of video. Now, you need to maintain, this is not a requirement that to be put on your website, but there has to be an internal policy and procedure document under regulation 15 with you. So it has to be in physical form, which should be kept in your office or wherever you are working. So there has to be an internal policy and procedure document under regulation 15. Yeah. So this is not to be displayed anywhere else, but has to be there with you. So basically, whenever any inspection happens, they do ask for internal policy and procedure document under regulation 15. So if you maintain this, that would be good. Now there is another requirement. This requirement was also there in the older regulation as well as in new regulation. Now your personal trading account, the statement has to be will be analyzed by auditor that you haven't broken any 30 by 5 days rule, means 30 days before and 5 days after of date of recommendation. You haven't done the trading in the same stocks. So your personal trading account as well as the people who are employed by RAs, their trading account as will be examined under audit. Okay, that they haven't breached the 30 by 5 days rule. Now, these apart from these checks and balances, yes and no question, there are certain records that to be maintained all the time under new regulation. Earlier there were 4 records, and now in 2024-25, 8 type of records has to be maintained. Most of them have already talked about as a part of audit compliances, but just to highlight again, so you need to maintain the research report which is duly signed and dated, research recommendation which you have provided, means the Excel sheet, the rationale for arriving these kind of research recommendation, the backup or rationale or research report, whatever you called, and the record of public appearances. These four records were earlier were there also, but now in 24 there is no change. So you need to maintain these four records. Apart from these four additional records to be maintained, which are: number one, know your client record, which I have already talked about in the client master, that you need to have a Excel as well as the XML records. Second is the register of clients along with client span, that I've already talked about in client master. The date and nature of research service means for each client, if you have say two products, right? Let's say X product and Y product. So whatever recommendation you are giving in X product, you need to segregate that recommendation into X record, and the client in client master as well, that for this client has subscribed for X product. Okay, so that's how you need to segregate. And detail of product and security for which this research services are provided, it is the same. And fees and consideration, if any, charge for such research services. For each client you need to maintain the fees record to, so that the auditor can check that you haven't breached the 3 months rule. Now, apart from this, you need to maintain all the records of communication which has happened through email, calls, recording, or with the older client as well as the prospective clients. So you need to maintain all the call recordings and email records, and these will also be checked by the auditor this time. Now, another point is the terms and condition of research services disclosed to the client and the consent of the client taken thereon. I have already talked about in the client master itself that for terms and condition, for new clients you need to do it immediately, but for the older client you have time until 30th June 2025. So if you have done it, get it audited this time itself, or if you do not have it, then you need to have this in the next year audit. Okay, so that will be a problem for you in terms of procedural hassles, nothing else, because you need to go back to again 24-25, pull all the client records and get them audited next year. So better you get it done this year itself. It will save your time for next year. And apart from this, I mean, these are the 8 records that I have talked about, and you need to ensure that any investor grievance that you have received on score, that has to be attended within 21 days from the date of receipt of grievance. This is as per regulation. If you are not answering, or if you are not entertaining these complaints within 21 days, it's a breach of compliance and SEBI takes it very seriously. A case has been made on this as well. Now, so these are the common requirements for individual as well as for non-individual that I have already talked about earlier. Now, for the non-individual, there is a additional requirement for this year audit, that they need to take a certificate from CA, CS or ICWA that they have done the client level segregation for their different departments. So if any corporate, any partnership, any LLP has say 5 different departments, then they need to take a certificate from CA, CS or ICWA that on a group level that they have segregated clients in different department and no client is overlapping from one department to another department. That the certificate which will be given by any CA, CS or ICWA as part of your compliance audit. This is the additional requirement for non-individual RS. And there are certain, if yes and no kind of questions that will be asked. Number one, what kind of AI tools that you are using? Have you disclosed? If you are using any kind of AI tools, then have you disclosed them to your client, that what is the extent of using those kind of AI tools? So if you are using any kind of AI tools for the purpose of taking your trading decisions or maybe recommending your recommendation, in that case you need to disclose this to client. So it could be part of your terms and condition, or it could be part of your email, where you can disclose that, okay, these kind of AI tools that we are using, and this is the kind of means this is the extent of those AI tool in our trading recommendation. So that's, you need to disclose it to the client. Second is the model portfolio guidelines. There are very broader model portfolio guidelines. I'll make a separate video on the model portfolio guidelines to give you an idea as to what has to be maintained for model portfolio. There will be another video for this. And now the third requirement is MITC, means the most important terms and condition. For the most important terms and condition, actually most important terms and condition has not been issued yet. It will come in due course. But one thing I would like to highlight, that if you have already signed your terms and condition, the MITC will only be disclosed to the client and need not to be signed by the client. MITC, whenever they will come, you only need to take those MITC and send it to your client, which means you have disclosure either through email or through WhatsApp or through any other mode. You need not any kind of sign on MITC. Okay, so that's all about the audit requirement for this year. I hope this will help you to maintain all the records in order. You have 2 months, get your records in order, and if you are facing any kind of problem, you can always get in touch with me. I'll help you out, to let you know where you are missing, or where what all records you do not have as of now. So it will help you to have all those records by 31st of March 2025 and get your compliance audit done on timely manner. Thank you so much.